This is In the Black with T. Dallas Smith. Conversations with trailblazers, glass ceiling breakers, and champions for change who inspire and cultivate leaders every day.
My guest this week is Leonte Benton, the president of T. Dallas Smith & Company. With an exceptional understanding of commercial real estate assets, he has facilitated major transactions with industry leaders like AT&T and Fed-Ex. After graduating from Morehouse, he earned his place as a respected voice in Atlanta's business community. Leonte, welcome to In the Black.
Yes, sir.
How are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic. It's a beautiful day in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes, indeed. Let's start with, where did you grow up and how did you think that shaped the person that you are today?
I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and been in Atlanta pretty much all my life. Atlanta has always been home for me, and when I say home, I mean that in a very homey way, meaning that all of my roots are here. My entire family is from the state of Georgia on my mother and my father's side. Growing up in Atlanta, I always felt like I belonged and that I came from a place of community, despite what the circumstances were. My background, I grew up in typical low socioeconomic kind of beginning.
What was the neighborhood? Tell the neighborhood.
So
Atlanta's a place of neighborhoods. So where was the neighborhood?
Yep. I was born in East Atlanta when it was known as Little Vietnam. And from there we moved to the west side, Adamsville, Mechanicsville. And from there we moved to the south side, Old National, and Flat Shoals. So I've lived in just about every hood from the east to the west to the south in Atlanta, Georgia. And I say that proudly because I feel like they're great communities that shaped me to become the man who I am today.
Amen, man. So, it's funny. I hear you talk about, I think it's important for you to call it the neighborhoods like you just called out, because a lot of people would believe that the neighborhoods, people who come from those neighborhoods may not rise to the levels that you've risen to. Talk about that statement alone, like about people having this ism on them because of the neighborhoods they're from, and how you overcame that.
Yeah, for me, everybody's situation is different. But I feel like I've always come from a place of love, and even when love wasn't present, based on what my mother, my father, and those who came before me and who are still here with me, I was raised in such a way that my folks, they wanted me to think highly of myself. They wanted me to think that I could achieve whatever it was that I wanted to achieve. All I can say is I had good people in my life at the end of the day. And I mean it in all sincerity. And I thank God gave me wisdom and discernment at a young age to be able to be extremely observant and learn from not only my mistakes as a kid, but others' mistakes, whether you were, a child or an adult, and me be able to apply that to my life. When I was 14 years old, I was arrested for the first time. I was at Six Flags. And, back in the day, it's been so long since I've been to Six Flags, I'm not sure if they still have this kind of setup, but there was like a game where you could play basketball, and based on the number of balls you got in the through the net, you would win a basketball that had like your favorite college team on it. And on this particular day, I noticed that no one was manning that particular booth. So I jumped over the counter and I basically started to tell the patrons that basically give me your money, I'll allow you to shoot these hoops. And I told them that the cash machine was out of order. And I basically started collecting money and allowing these people to shoot. And these two guys walked up to me, and they were undercover cops. And they said, "Hey man, come with us." And I was like, "No, you're a stranger. I'm definitely not coming with you." And then one of the guys, he pulled out a badge, and he said, "Sir, we
it's
need
Six Flags security.
we need you to come with us." I think it was actually a
The police.
Douglas County undercover cop, if I remember
Oh, wow.
correctly. Yeah.
Okay.
And the story's a little fuzzy now. That was over 25 years ago. They ended up arresting me. They take me to this place, and they started asking me all these questions. And the first question was, "Where did you get that money from? It's in your right pocket." And I said, "My mom gave me, this money for lunch today." And I'm just playing country dog. And he just kept asking questions. And then he was like, "Well," he said, "Man, we saw you, we got you on camera." And he said, "Is that your money or Six Flags money?" And I kind of just stuck to the story. And then he was like, "Okay, well, since you want to play, Mr. Tough Guy, we'll go ahead and book you in." So we went to some little holding cell, and I was at the time I didn't realize this, but I was in like a holding cell with adults, and everyone's in the cell acting a complete fool. I mean, cussing the guards out. And it was a chaotic situation. And I kind of just sat in the corner with my back against the wall. Folks, coming up to me, asking me, "Young blood, why you in here?" and all this kind of foolishness. And I just kind of ignored them. And I had to use the restroom at one point. And I don't know if you've ever been in a holding cell, but the toilet.
I never have. I never have, sir.
Well, that's a blessing.
Yes. For the record, I never have.
And so I'm in this room with all these guys, and the toilet is literally just in the middle of the floor. And I'm a 14-year-old kid, and all these guys around. And I was like, "There's no way in the world I'm getting ready to, use the restroom in front of all these guys in a holding cell in jail."
Yes, it's not gonna happen. Yeah, I've seen movies, sir. I've seen movies.
I went to the guy, and I asked him if he would come here, and I asked him if I could just use the restroom. And as we were having that interaction, I was very polite. "Please, thank you, yes sir, no sir." And the guy looked at me. He was like, "Man, you don't belong in here with these animals." And he was like, "Man, I'm going to give you the opportunity to call someone to pick you up." So my mom at the time, she worked 4 jobs, and she was working at the airport that evening. And I called this lady named Miss Pooh, who was a friend of the family and also a teacher at my school at the time. And Miss Pooh came to pick me up. And but before that happened, if I had to guess, I probably stole maybe $800 from Six Flags. And when they caught me, they only saw it was like, let's just say $6 in my pocket. I had on what they call whitey tighties, and I literally stuffed all the cash in my underwear. And when the gentleman allowed me to go use the restroom in privacy, I flushed all the money down the toilet. And because they didn't know I had it, I prayed to God and said, "God, you get me out of this situation. You ain't got to ever worry about me stealing again." And
Wow.
And I thank God He got me out of that situation, and we've been able to look onward and upward.
Amen. Amen. I love that story, man. Talk about how you got started in commercial real estate. And before you do that, talk about how did you get interested in commercial real estate first, and then talk about how you got started in it.
Yep. So when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to the construction site of the Bank of America building. And when I was 4 years old, I told my dad while we were on the site, I said, "I'm going to own a building like that one day." And so fast forward, my father went to prison when I was 7. And while he was in prison, he would send me real estate related articles from the Wall Street Journal. He sent me Donald Trump's book, The Art of Doing the Deal. And he would just send me stuff to continue to plant that seed. Fast forward, when I got to high school, I had a high school English teacher named Mr. Mays who never made more than $60,000 as an educator, but he became a millionaire investing in real estate. And Mr. Mays, he owned a bunch of single-family residential houses, and he also owned some small apartment buildings, 8 units, 10 units, 20-unit apartment buildings. And he would mention it from time to time in class. So one day I just asked Mr. Mays, I said, hey, man, can I come help you on the weekends for free? And he said, sure, but you got to get permission from your mom. And that was the beginning of a phenomenal relationship. I basically, Mr. Mays, a very old school fella in the way of he did everything himself. So whenever something went down at one of the properties, he would act as the maintenance man. And so I started basically doing handyman work with him on the weekends. And while we were, kind of doing this handyman work, I would just ask him questions around how he was able to acquire these different buildings, et cetera. And Mr. Mays, he's still a dear friend to this day. In fact, he was at my house this past Sunday for dinner.
Awesome.
And he's someone who I love and cherish. So fast forward, another thing happened while I was in high school. Coach Bracco, who was a basketball coach and also a history and economics teacher, he basically, in my opinion, no one took Bracco's class serious. And on this particular day, I decided to skip class. And, I'm in the gym goofing off, and Coach Bracco, again, just being the guy who he was and being the basketball coach, I decided, maybe I'll go to class and check on Bracco. It's 5 minutes left. And I walk into class literally with 5 minutes left. And Bracco, I've never seen him this animated. Like, he literally lost himself in the way of, he went up to the board and he just started writing the word discipline, 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 discipline all the way down the chalkboard. And he underlined it like vigorously every time. And then he said, Leonte, step outside with me for a second. So I step outside, and Bracco gets like almost nose to nose with me. And he said, son, what the F are you going to do with your life? And obviously he didn't say what the F. I did that strictly for the podcast.
Yeah, it's edit. Thank you for the edit. Thank you for the edit.
I looked him square in his eye and I said, I'm going into real estate. And he said, well, God damn it, I want you to go into commercial real estate. And then he just walked off. And I called my godfather that evening and I asked him, I said, hey man, what is commercial real estate? And he said, man, that's that big S. Yeah, there you go.
The big stuff.
Yes. And he said, yeah, that's what you've been talking about mostly all your life. And kind of just because I guess backing up a little bit, obviously, again, I had an interest in real estate, but I didn't know there was a difference between residential and commercial real estate. I thought real estate was just real estate. So that was like the aha moment for me when Coach Bracco basically said, go into commercial real estate.
Yeah. At that moment, when you realize, okay, it's about commercial real estate, there was something else that happened that I thought was phenomenal that you did in terms of your letter writing.
Yes.
So if you could share that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a series of events that happened that led me to going to school in California. So in high school, I wasn't a great student. I was a C student. And shout out to my mom. She used to bring my teachers Krispy Kreme donuts and Chick-fil-A biscuits in between her school bus route. And I am truly convinced that if it wasn't for those efforts, I probably would not have graduated high school. So it was a definite team effort.
It takes a village. It takes a village.
That's right.
Yeah.
I had some friends get arrested. I had some friends, a friend lose his life. But I also had other friends that were positive influences, and we ended up going to California and getting an associate's degree. And I got accepted to UC Berkeley after going to this 2-year school in California. I reached out to my godfather again, Jeffrey Hicks, and he was like, "Hey man, why are you staying in California?" And I just told him, California's great, no mosquitoes, the weather's nice. I'm starting to kind of get my sea legs out here. And he was like, "Man, but I thought you wanted to make a difference at home." And I said, "I do." And he made a suggestion. He said, "Man, I think you should go to school in Georgia somewhere so that you can start building relationships so that when you graduate from college, you're not starting from scratch." And I was like, wow, he's done it again. He's totally made me change my mind and move in another direction. So he recommended that I apply to Morehouse, and I applied to Morehouse. It was the only school I applied for in the state of Georgia. I got accepted. I ended up coming home, and when I came home, there were still things going on in my friend circle that were appealing, but I wanted to be careful that I didn't get dragged into any foolishness, if you will. And it was like I got a message from God to literally start writing letters. So there's a saying: if you want to be a plumber, then you need to hang with plumbers. And in my opinion, if you want to be a millionaire, you need to be hanging with millionaires. So in my mind, I just did the very simple thing of I wrote me a generic letter that was about 4 sentences long, and I would customize it based on who I was sending it to. And I literally wrote just about everyone I could think of that I admired. Everyone from Truett Cathy to Arthur Blank to Herman Russell. I wrote Warren Buffett. I wrote Pete Carell, who was over at Georgia Pacific. I wrote Egbert Perry, Dennis Lockhart, who was at the Federal Reserve Bank. Tom Cousins. The list goes on and on and on. I literally just started writing anyone I could think of. And when I would pass buildings in the city, and I would see signage and I would see a broker's name on that signage, I would just send them a letter. I would say probably 98, 99% of the folks that I reached out to allowed me to spend time with them in some capacity. In those moments, I just took notes, and then I started kind of comparing the notes, and I noticed that all of the folks that I met with had a few things in common. One of them was they were all involved civically. So again, in a very common sense way, I said, okay, if they're involved civically and they sit on these boards, that means they got other friends who are probably in their same circle on these boards. So I started volunteering these various organizations, and sure enough, I started to meet other folks, other decision makers, etc. And I kind of just repeated the process. I would reach out to them and ask them if I could pick their brain. And then one thing led to another. I met this gentleman by the name of Harold Dawson through the Empire Board of Realtors, who's also Harold Dawson Sr., who's also an Atlanta native, who also went to Morehouse. And he took me under his wing and started inviting me to come by his office and come to these different events, etc. Through Mr. Dawson and my godfather, Jeffrey Hicks, they orchestrated and made sure that I sat at a table for the honoree that year for the Empire Board of Realtors, which happened to be a professional baseball and football player by the name of Brian Jordan. And he was being honored as like real estate developer of the year, if I remember correctly. And as I always kind of just did, I went up to him and I just said, "Hey man, I'm a student at Morehouse, and congratulations on your award. I would love to pick your brain at some point in the future to hear your journey to success." That was like my elevator pitch, if you will.
Yeah.
That's what I hit everybody with.
Yeah, I love it.
he laughed at me. He gave me his card and he said, call me next week. And I called him the next week. And when I came in the office, I remember him saying he hit baseballs for a living, but he's going to introduce me to the guy that handled all the real estate, which happened to be our gracious host, Mr. T. Dallas Smith. And
yes. Okay, so we're gonna put a pin in it right there.
Okay.
Next time on In the Black, Leonte Benton will talk about his formal introduction to the commercial real estate industry, and we'll also discuss the culture at T. Dallas Smith and Company.
Our office is home for me. Like I look forward to coming to the office on a regular basis, and it's because of the energy that exists. And I'm thankful for our team, and shout out to our team. We have a truly fantastic team.
This has been In the Black with T. Dallas Smith. To find out how you can change the dominant narrative in the commercial real estate industry and challenge the status quo to improve the lives of others, go to tdsintheblack.com. In the Black with T. Dallas Smith is a production of Forbes Books.